Hi guys, good morning. We will be starting with the session. So we'll start this demo session at this point of time. And before that, I'd like to introduce myself. Hello everyone. This is Ranjit from Acadgild. And in this session, we will be learning about like how to, what exactly Android does and how does it help you in making your career brighter or not only with respect to career. If you have some hobby or if you have some idea in your mind and you would want to develop or just get that idea into into the real world and you want to share it with the world, so those things can be done using this interesting platform wherein you have all mobile platform right now. So everything you take up, there's an app and there is like mobile apps coming in. So that way you could just make your idea presentable or get it to the real world. So Android, first thing to start with. So what is Android will be the major question. So if you're not, if you're not aware of what is Android, then this is what Android is. Android is an operating system which was built by Android INC. And if people think that Google built it from scratch, then might be wrong. So because Android was developed by Android INC, and later Google acquired Android, and right now Google is developing Android at this point of time. Since it's an open source, or an open source operating system, like anyone, basically, like even you can develop something for Android, and you could just release your own version, and nobody will be questioning you because Android is open source. And what Android is made up of, since it is open source, like something has to be reused, or something would have been like taken from the existing environment. So what is it? So I think every operating system which is there right now, like Windows or Android or iOS or any other operating system, for example, will be built with a core, or you can also call it as a base structure. So the core or the base structure is from Linux. So since we all know that Linux is an open source environment, even Android is open source. So Linux core has been used for the Android's kernel. Kernel is basically an integral part, or we can also call it as like the core of the operating system. And used, so it's used to uh, you know uh, create the link between the hardware, low level hardware and the high level application software. So by that you'll have a question like, what does that mean? Just take an example of camera. So you all click selfies and take pics. So how does it actually happen? So simple. So you'll give a simple answer telling we have an app installed on a phone. So just click on that. We open it and we see whatever is good there. So we'll just click it. Now, how does this exactly happen? Now, how does this happen is, so basically there's a hardware. So if you flip your phone around, you will see a small lens kind of thing. So that's basically like the camera hardware part, which is present now, which takes pictures for us. But how does it, take our orders? So it's basically through a kernel. So we have something called as kernel. So the kernel is something which talks to the hardware, and the app is a high level software, or you can also call it as an app where the user will be able to interact with the system. So this is a very brief and very high level explanation of how it works. And now to develop such things, we need something. So to develop, if you ask me like, yes, hardware is there, kernel is already there. So what are we going to develop right now? Yes, what are you going to develop is a high level application. High level application in the sense apps like camera or WhatsApp, and you have Book My Show, you have Facebook, and you have plenty other games. So like apps like that. So basically apps like that where the user uses it for our utility, and thereby we'll be ensuring that we improve our career in the same field, or as a hobby we can just improve it. So all these things can be done by developing an app. So for developing an app, what all are required? So for developing an app, we require things like the SDK. SDK is basically the software development kit. So Android gives its own SDK, and using this SDK, we can actually develop the apps. So is only the SDK sufficient, or the software is sufficient? Basically, that's not the only thing which is sufficient. So we need something else. So we need some platform to build. So basically, I assume that everybody would have developed a simple C program, a simple C program. So anyone who hasn't written the simple C program, or even anyone who's very much new to programming platform, guys, please, let's make this session as interactive as possible, because I don't want to now make you guys bored when I'm like doing a one-way talk. So if you guys have anything that you want to share with others, share with me, or whatever you feel like, yes, I want to do this, just share any questions, or any idea that you have that you want to share. Anything and everything you can just share here. Is anyone having any questions at this point of time? I assume that no one has a question at this point of time, and I'll proceed. And meanwhile, if you have any questions, please do let me know. Okay, so we were discussing about SDK. So what is an SDK and what does it do? So SDK is basically a software development kit, which is given by Android. So which comprises of like useful modules for development, and useful things. So basically like the libraries, the framework, and few some of the stuff which is really for developing Android will be given with that SDK stuff. Okay, so we have all these things. So how do we actually build an app? So for building an app, we have a tool. So we have a tool. So basically tool doesn't mean like you just have to open that tool and you just what app to build it. So it's basically a tool wherein you can use this SDK, that is software development kit, and you can use your programming skills. And not to panic at this point of time, even if you are not so good at programming, we'll make sure that you will learn all this stuff. So if somebody is worrying like I am not good at programming, or I don't know programming, I don't know how it works and all, so not to worry at this point of time. We'll make sure that you learn and you do stuff with it, or in other words, you develop an app. So this platform that I was talking, Android Studio, is a tool which is basically like the open source tool. And using this tool, we will be putting or we'll be creating the apps, and we can just put those apps onto something called as Play Store. I think everybody might have used it, even though you didn't know that it was called as Play Store, but you would have used it, because to download any app on your device, you must go to Play Store itself. So like you just go and search for apps and you update the apps, right? So that is the area where the Play Store is, and that is where you need to download the app from. And now we'll see like these are the stats. So these are some of the stats about the comparison with the smartphone market, and what is the percentage of users using Android and iOS. That's a survey with respect to Android and iOS. So if you see here, like in 2009, it was like largely iOS and then a small portion of Android. And drastically into 2010, it got changed. And from then, it's been like a wide market. So if you want the stats, I can give one more thing. So there are about 1.5 billion Android devices worldwide. You can imagine there are more than like a billion devices There are more than 1 billion devices across the globe, which is running on this operating system called Android. Okay. So now, yes, the system is running and all these things are fine. So what do we got to do with this will be our next question. And how do we develop some interesting apps? So we'll see that. So as you know that Android is an operating system which is largely for uh, the mobile platform, but that was like about 3-4 years back. But now we have like plenty of platforms where Android is very much important. Does anybody uh, own a smartwatch? Might be like Moto 360, G Watch, or Apple iWatch. Okay, that's good. Then I don't have one. That's okay. So now, so these are like different platforms. So if you see, Android is on smartphones, Android is on watches, Android is on televisions, Android is inside the car, on the car's dashboard, which tells like what direction to take and where to refuel and the nearest refueling station. So all these things can be right now. Whatever I'm telling right now is like some are ideas and some are like existing models. So if you learn this platform development, so Android, so you could just also work around with various platforms. The programming and everything is going to be the same. The only thing is like based on the platform, you need to change your mindset and you need to work on different ideas to get it up and running. But the core which is the development core and the development platform and everything remains the same. So now, what all uses Android today? Like this is a very good assumption. Like what might be the future, and some of the things are already there in the market at this point of time. So what all you can control with Android? So it's like all your everyday items. So if you want to control some temperature at your place, you can do it remotely. You can just turn off your house light, or you can just lock your door and open your garage door, or where is your car parked. So all these things. So basically, all these things can be determined using a smartphone, and that too, a platform like Android gives you the flexibility to do everything. So since the openness of the platform, so since the platform itself is like completely open, that is the open source platform which allows you to do stuff with it, like whatever you want to do you can just do it. Now this is how the architecture of Android is. So I was all the time talking about like the lowermost level, that is the Linux kernel. So Linux kernel is basically, as I was telling you, which helps you in you know uh, talking to the high level software and building the bridge between the high level software and the low level hardware. And guys, at this point of time, if anyone is having any questions, please do ask me. Or if you're having any trouble, anything, you can just ask me right now. So you might have some doubts at this point of time, but whatever it is, you can just ask me and get clarified. Is anyone having any questions or doubts at this point of time? Okay, cool then. Okay, I think I've got a question. Okay, no questions. Cool. Okay, so let me just start with the basic stuff about this Android and what we are going to do with our course, and how is this course going to head, and how things work. Okay, so let's just start with the basic stuff itself. The basic stuff is going to be about like how this architecture of Android is built. So we have the top level, which is the applications level, wherein you're going to develop applications. And what do the other two levels mean? So other two levels are to help your top level, that is to help build and help to perform the top level. So basically, like if you build a camera app, so camera app requires some camera libraries, and those camera libraries would require some help of a framework. So you cannot build everything from scratch. So there are like libraries which are given to you. You can just use those libraries and build the app on top of it. So that's how the actual framework works. And now we'll see like what are the major building block of or building block for an app basically. So an app consists of something called as a manifest. So a very good example of manifest. So how many of you have observed that while downloading an app, you will get a permissions dialog box. When you just go and download WhatsApp or download any other app, for instance, you will get a basic dialog box which tells you the list of permissions that particular app requires. Have you just gone through those things? Okay, we have a tendency to just skip those things and then proceed further. But just remember that there are like certain permissions which is like required for downloading an app. So not exactly like every app should have those permissions itself, but each and every single app will have its own permissions. So for example, if you download WhatsApp, if you assume that you're downloading WhatsApp, and what all permissions does it require? So it requires like asks you like it tells you like WhatsApp requires internet, and WhatsApp uses your location, and WhatsApp reach your contacts, and WhatsApp reach your bookmark. So all these list of permissions will be put there. You have to accept that, and only then you will be able to install. And now, so why is this given? So this is given basically in order to provide security and in order to give some transparency for the users, so that they are aware of what all your app is using at this point of time. Now, so the transparency has to be given from the developer side. So as a developer, where do you give this transparency and how do you specify that your app is going to use all these features? So the main area where you specify is the Android manifest.xml file. Sorry guys, there's a typo here. So it's like Android manifest.xml file. So let me just change it a little later. So Android manifest.xml file. And apart from that, the next ones that we have is an activity. So an activity in very simple terms, let me just explain you. So an activity is basically like every single screen that you see on on your app, like any app, for example, let's take WhatsApp or Facebook or any app. So when you open the app, whatever you see or whatever is related to that particular app that you see on the screen is called as an activity. Activity is basically something which gives you the visual treat of an app. Now next comes the concept of intents. So what are these intents? So why I'm explaining these things are like these things are the major and the basic blocks, and each and every single app uses at least like manifest is compulsory, activities are compulsory, not compulsory, but basically every activity will be using it. So almost like 75% of the contents that is shown here at least will be used in all the apps, almost all the apps. And now intents. So intents are basically like some kind of a carrier. You can also call it as a postman basically. So what is a postman? So basically just carries some kind of message from one area to another area. So it might be like today your app is giving some information to some other app. That's like, for example, you just assume WhatsApp itself. And WhatsApp, initially when you download WhatsApp, so WhatsApp doesn't have its own contact list, right? Everybody agree with me? WhatsApp doesn't have its own contacts list. But what WhatsApp does is it uses the device's contact list. And the device's contact list is given by some other app. So basically there is an app called as Contacts. There's an app called as WhatsApp. So WhatsApp uses the data which is generated from Contacts app. Now, how does this data from Contacts app will be sent to the WhatsApp? So again comes the concept of like we have like two concepts involved here. So one is the concept of intents, and the other one is the concept of content providers. So there are like in one single example that I'm telling you, there are like two different concepts which are involved. So content providers are something which exposes one app data to another, or which gives you a safe path for other apps to access the current app's data. So the best example can be Contacts. Like there are like plenty of other apps also. So basically, like for maintaining pictures, you have the Photos app given by Google, and for maintaining contacts, you have the Contacts app. So like to maintain different stuff, we have different apps. So how do we expose this thing? So basically using content providers. And how does intent help us? Intent help us in the communication process. And the next thing is we have something called as views. So what are views? So view is basically you can call it as the base class. Base class in the sense, if you see a button, and if you see some kind of image, and if you see some kind of checkbox or a spinner or a drop down box, so everything will be derived from this class called as views. So view is basically the base class which helps you which helps us in generating different kinds of views, like a button or any other view, for example. Now we have seen the content provider, a very brief explanation about content provider. Next, we'll just move further ahead to services. So what is a service? The service, you can just keep that as an exact opposite of an activity. So what is an activity? Activity is something which gives you the front end, or which gives you the visual look for an application, and which runs on the foreground. That is basically you can see the activity. In other words, service is something which always runs in the background, which doesn't have a user interface, or it doesn't show up, or it doesn't have a visual appearance on the device. So what it does? So it does some background task. So what background task does it do? Will be your question. So just assume an example that you have WhatsApp, but you don't you don't open WhatsApp every time. So you would have kept it's installed on your phone, but somebody from WhatsApp should be watching over for the messages. So who will do that? Something which is running on background. So that's where your services comes into picture. Services which runs in the background will be able to collect some information, even though your application is in the front end. It's not like visually active, but still the applications process, the WhatsApp process, is running in your application. And the next thing is we have something. I'm explaining every single concept here in a very brief way so that you get an idea about like how it works. So it's not like I explain like 100 things and you understand all 100 at this point of time. Right now I get it because you're not exposed to that environment wherein you will be able to grasp things of Android. But still I'm trying to put things in place so that you get at least some stuff out of it, and you get an idea about like how the overall content and overall sessions are going to be designed, and how it's going to be like helpful for you. That's the whole reason behind having this demo. So first, just to like to tell that, and yeah, let's proceed to the topic. So I'm just relating everything to activity. It's easy to understand. So activity is basically like or any app that you open. So even now you can just phone and open Facebook. So whatever you see on the screen, so that's basically from the activity section. Fragment. So activity, it's derived like activity is a whole screen, And fragment might be like the half of the screen, or three-fourth of the screen, or a simple portion of the screen can be a fragment. And that fragments cannot run on its own. Fragments always has to be on top of an activity. So next comes the concept of broadcast receivers. As the name itself tells that there is some kind of communication which happens here. So you'll be wondering, like, is it a communication from outside environment or is it from internal? Definitely not. It's not from outside. It is internal. So internal in the sense, you might be wondering, like, what internal? So internal means, so basically, like, let's assume a scenario, like your phone is off at this point of time. So we all know that if the phone is off, nothing runs on the phone. But when the on, so when the phone is on, some process should get started. Okay, I've just got a question. Let me just answer your question in like 2 minutes. Let me just finish off this broadcast receiver and I'll give you an answer for the same. Okay, so we're talking about broadcast receiver. So it's not like the outside, broadcast. So it's like internal. So internal in the sense, it's within the Android system. Require some kind of receivers and everything in the Android system. You'll have that question. So why we require is basically like, so assume a scenario that one of your app is performing some task. So one of your app is performing, it has finished its execution, and it has to tell some other app. It has to tell some other app that yes, I've finished this process, and you may continue, or something with respect to that. So how does it tell? How does it tell? There's no direct communication. So what happens is at that point of time, it creates a broadcast, or it might or there might be a scenario. It might want to tell it to some 10 different apps or 20 different apps. So at that time, the broadcast message, which will go to the entire Android system, and thereby it just gets to know some message has been received. Okay. So next, coming back to the question, so I have a question like, does the building blocks remain same for all app platforms like iOS, etc.? Yes, the direct answer for this is no. The building blocks doesn't remain the same, because each and every single platform gives their own concept. So excuse me, iOS uses different platforms, and where there you will have like different set of things. And even the base programming language which is used for Android and iOS remains different. iOS uses like Objective-C, and it uses a new language called as Swift. So both can be used in the same app also for building. But in the other hand, Android uses Java as its main programming language. But if you was to design something in some other development platforms like C++, Python, or any other platform, you can just do it. Okay, so this is some interesting stuff. So I guess that you might be aware of something called as material design. So you'll have a question like, what is this material design? We are hearing it from a long time in the Android market and the Android developer space. So what is this, and how does it affect the design of our system? Yes, so basically material design is a concept. So it's a concept which tells us like how each and every single element on the UI should be designed and developed. So that's the main scenario with the material design. So material design is something which tells you like how the user interfaces should be designed. There is we have broken it into several different portions in the images that you see here. So what does it do? So what is this material design all about? So if you're wondering that, so this material design is all about like everything in design. So everything in design means what? It will be a next question. So small detailings like what should be your shadow, what should be the shadow, or whether to show shadow on the UI or not, or how the app's icons should look like. So there will be a back button. So what should be the icon of the back button? And if your app has like several different icons, so what should be each and every single icon look like? And how do you design cards? So if you design cards, uh, does the cards edges should be chamfered, basically like rounded edges, or it should be sharp edges? So all these small, even really small detailing will be given through the concept of the material design, and which also talks about the color specs. So if you observe very carefully here, so even the color specs are really matched. So we have some orangish thing, and we have some shadows on top of it. We have used like if you see the whole app, there are like only two shades of color, three shades of colors which are being used. Some orangish shade, and some bluish gray shade, and a completely blackish gray shade. So all these different shades corresponds to the concept of material design. So this concept of material design helps us in designing things. So what all we do here? So what all we do here is basically, so get things. So if you see here, there's a calendar behind. So even the calendar is designed in some way. Like calendar has a top ones. So top has a blue shade, and the days are with white. And I'm sorry, dates are with white, and the days are with a little, not a little, a very much lighter shade of the same blue that has been used on the top. So that's what is the whole thing about material design. Not to just give you a small, just about like what is material design. So let me just go into the material design guidelines, which is given by Google. So basically, it's a developer spec everyone should be aware of, and they should be following it and then reading it. We'll go through like what is material design specs here. So this is the material design themes, which are given by Android itself, of course. Google has specified these specs and then given it, and how to use these things. So basically, if you see here, it tells you like all the tips. If you want, like, let me go to colors. So it just gives you a list of good colors, which really looks good on really looks good in Android platform. So we'll see those colors right now. Okay. So if you just go through here, so this is the Android design guidelines. So material.google.com. So if you just go there, so you get the guidelines. So what are the coloring schemes? So basically, you might have observed few things with Android. So it's like how to, you can just, there's a design document which tells you like how to design it. So let's take some popular app. So which app that you want to take up right now? Anything that you wish. You suggest some app. I'll just tell you like whether it's built on material design or not, or and we can take up like what design guidelines they have followed. Or let me just take my own example. If you have something in your mind, you can just tell me. I'll just take up popular apps that you use daily. Yep, we'll just open one of the screenshots. So what happens here? Where is the concept of material design, you might ask me. So a very simple concept about material design. So what the guideline tells you is, so if you see here, so this is basically called as the system bar, and this is the toolbar that we have. So what system design tells you is, these are the colors. So always your top bar, just keep it very dark, and the next bar that you have, keep it a lighter shade than this. That's what is a very simple guideline which is given by material design. So you'll see the document here, material design document. So what does it tell? So if you have here primary color, secondary color, accent color, and text and background colors. So you have something like this. Now where is it told will be your next question.
So let's take, this is the guidelines, which is given by Android. So just take the example of this one. Where's this? Okay. So this is a screen, the screen example that is given. So it's like for design guidelines. So if you see here, the color combination is pink, and this is the primary color. The primary color is indigo, and the secondary color is somewhat like pink accent. And if you see here, this is the darker shade that is used, a little lighter shade compared to the darker ones. So this is basically what I'm talking about, the Google specs. And even if you check out for Gmail app or any other app, which will be using the same specs as you see here. So this is how the concept of material design works, and like plenty of things which is involved with the material design. So if you see here, so we have like status bar, app bar, background, colors, and things. Status bar is basically this one, which displays the system icons and all these things. So this bar, keep it very much darker shade, and the app bar that you have, keep it a little lighter shade than your system bar, and the background, keep it lighter than the toolbar that you have, or the app bar that you have applied, and cards is definitely going to be lighter. So if you use the same white colored theme or some gray colored theme here, you can just put a darker gray and put a lighter gray here, and use this background for a very, very light gray, and you can make your card like completely white. So it's like, it just gives a visual representation in terms of material design. So why, you might have a question like, should I follow the same guidelines? So why you should follow the same guidelines if you want to follow it? So why you want to follow it? Because that's going to, look really good and really decent if it is applied on the real world design and it's shown on the device. So based on that, we'll design each and every single component which is here. And now we have just seen like what material design is. And the next thing, we'll just go and then check out like other things, like how do you store. So assume that I want to store some data. So what are the different storage techniques which are given by Android? So there are a handful of storage techniques which is given by Android. So you have internal storage, you have external storage, and you have shared preferences, and you have database storage. So what are all these things? So what is internal storage? So internal storage means, don't think that internal and external storage are like you get like nowadays you don't have phones which has SD card support, but still they have an external memory. So think about that. So even even if you have told that your phone has like 32 GB of internal memory, that doesn't mean that it is completely internal. So what happens is, in that 32 GB, there will be about some 5 or 6 GB or 8 GB about internal memory, and the rest will be external itself. So internal memory is a place where the operating system resides, and all the apps, data, and everything resides. And external memory is a place where the photos, the very good example is like photos, all your downloads, and everything will reside in the external storage. So how do you store an internal and external storage? You just create some files and then store it there directly. And whatever is stored in internal storage will be the most secure part. So assume that my app X has some database, and my app Y wants to access that database given by app X. Then there is no direct access for app Y to access the database of app X. So for that, what needs to be used? So earlier we discussed the concept of content providers. That needs to be used. If that is not implemented, then your data remains private. Your data remains private. So everything which is stored in internal memory will be private. So like in internal memory, what all can be stored? A simple file can be stored, and you can also store the shared preferences will be stored in the internal memory, and even the databases will be stored in the internal memory. And what is external memory? External memory is a place like SD card where you can store your data outside the system's internal memory. That's basically like for storing photos, some downloaded files. All these things can be stored in the external memory. And what are shared preferences? So shared preferences is a type of file, not exactly the same file as a normal text file. So it's basically an XML file. So what it stores is it just stores small pieces of data. So if you want to store some kind of contacts and everything, you cannot definitely store in the shared preferences because it's going to be huge. So shared preferences is intended to have a smaller storage and which is a little faster when compared to databases, because databases will have like huge chunk of data, but shared preferences will have only limited data present in it. Maybe you can assume like some 100 odd units of data. It's a lot more than that. And the next type of storage is databases. So this database, we call it as SQL-like database. So what is it about? SQL-like database. So if somebody is familiar with SQL database, then the SQLite is very much similar to SQL database, but there's no such huge operation which you can perform on the SQL database, since the size of this database itself is about like 250 kb, not more than 250 kb. So, and you don't have to install any external database to the Android system, because each and every operating system is has its own SQLite database structure. So you don't have to install anything externally. Everything is internal. So everything that you store it in the database will be like rows. Will be like rows and columns. Guys, any questions at this point of time? Guys, anyone having any questions at this point of time? Okay, cool then. So if you have no questions, then we shall just proceed further. And the next things that we're going to learn is about like client server communication. So like, what is client server communication? Again, just take an app, a real world app as an example, because it will be good for you to visualize like what happens basically. Okay, this time we're not going to WhatsApp or Facebook. We're going to a little different app. Okay, what is that app? So we'll just think about that. Let me use Book My Show. So Book My Show, what happens in Book My Show? So Book My Show app is basically for displaying the cinemas or the movies which are running nearby. Now, how does it work? So you open the app and you select the movie section, and once you go into that section, so it will show you a waiting symbol. So why it is showing you a waiting symbol and what happens? So basically what happens is when you enter that screen, the screen is designed in such a way that it sends a request from the client. The client is basically the app or the mobile at this point of time. So it sends a request to the server. It just sends a request to the server, and the network time. So once a request is sent, so what happens is that from the app side, it just enables that loading symbol. That's basically like telling you to please wait. And what happens is a background thread will be running. Background thread in this is a background process will be running from the app end, which is waiting for the data to be collected from the server. Now, once the server gives the data back to the client, the client what it does is it would have returned the code in an efficient way, wherein it parses all the data. So basically, it will be sent as a JSON data. So JSON is basically a format in which data will be shared. That's a popular format. So the data will be sent. Now the data is sent, but at the client side, it should be very much intelligent enough to calculate, or it might be like intelligent enough to check whether the data is valid or not. Yes, if the data is valid, then convert the data into the user interface and show it visually to the user. So that's what happens. So now this is the process where like the client server communication happens.
And the next way is like some Firebase push notification. So let's call it as push notification, which is given by Firebase. So Firebase is basically a merger from Google right now, so which gives you the push notification access. Now, what is this Firebase going to do, and how does it provide us the push notifications? So basically, what it does is, so let's take another example for the same. I think you might have used Flipkart, Snapdeal, Amazon, all these apps. So all these apps, whenever there's an offer, it just sends you a notification to your mobile. You wouldn't have requested for the notification, but still a notification will be sent for you. Now, how is it sent? So the concept behind that is called as push notifications. So push notifications will be pushed from the server end. Client wouldn't have requested for that, but still client will be pushed, or client will be sent with a notification. And that notification can be opened and you can just clear, or you can just view that and do whatever you want with that. But this concept of, like sending the notification to the user without even requesting is called as push notifications. And what are these things? So we have like OK HTTP, and we have like Glide, and we have too many other things. So what are all these things? So these things are basically the third party libraries that we'll be using in the apps. Okay, there's a question from Sangeeta asking like, can you give us some examples? So if you can tell me like what examples that you're looking at, so that I can give you some examples for the same. You could just give me like what are the examples that you're looking for what you want examples. I can just give you the examples for the same. For the push notifications or for something else? About app having web service and notifications. Yes, app having web service is basically the Book My Show, which I was talking about. So Book My Show uses web services. So like when you open that movie screen, so it just shows you the loading symbol, and after the loading is done, it'll show you all the list of movies. So which is not exactly stored on your device. Instead, excuse me. Instead, the movies or the information about movies are stored in the server side. So we'll get the data from the server side, and we will be showing that data to the user. And in the same way, like push notifications. So a best example can be like Flipkart or Amazon or Snapdeal, any other such apps. So wherein you will get the notification about like today they have like 80% discount on something. So you'll get that notification without even asking. So such notifications are basically called as push notifications. Okay, you can just ping me the question. Do we have memory related constraints? Yes, we do have memory related constraints, but thanks to our Android framework and the basic Android system, which will give us like a very good platform for analyzing our memory related issues. So basically what we have is like we have tools from Android. So basically we have the Android device monitor, and we have the Android visualization, the memory visualizations. So using all these things, we can actually check out like what our app is going to do, and how the internal app is dealing with, and how do we actually deal with the memory related issues, and we can also solve all those things. Any other questions as such? Any other questions for now? Okay. So now, we have the third-party libraries. We have like OK HTTP, and these are few of the examples that I'm telling. There are like n number of third-party libraries. So we have libraries like OpenHTTP, we have like Glide, and we have like Picasa, we have like material design libraries. We have plenty of libraries. So these are some libraries. So what does it do? So it basically simplifies the developer work. So you don't have to sit and design everything. So you can use these libraries and you can make your work easier. That's what is the concept behind these usage of libraries. And the next thing is like we have Android APIs. So Android APIs, like just take an example of I think even Flipkart and all these things gives you an example. I mean, usage of all these things. So let me talk about this. So it's like you don't have to log in. You don't have to sign up for a login basically in the apps which are present in nowadays. So wherein you have a Facebook login and you have a Gmail login, all these things. So you could just click on like login with Gmail, login with Facebook, you'll be logged in. And for displaying the maps, you don't have to go to the map app itself. Instead, you could just view the maps in your app itself. Just take an example of Zomato. So Zomato gives you nearby restaurants, and logging into Zomato, you don't have to have a Zomato account. Instead, you could just have a Facebook account or a Google account. Log in with Facebook or Google. You will enter into Zomato, and from Zomato, you can just click on like nearby restaurants, and nearby restaurants will give you the list of restaurants on the map itself. So now we'll just see like how this course helps us in designing the apps and what all you will be able to do it. So what we have is like we will be giving provision for you to develop. So during the course itself, we'll have the we'll basically have your encourage your ideas to develop the apps, and we will encourage you to create your own apps. So we will just give this list of we have like from 4 or 5 app options from our end, wherein you can use those things and then build the app. We have like the to-do list and the expense calculators, we have alarm, we have IMDb app, and all these things. So if you don't want to do any of these apps, well, you can just go with your own app. So basically you can just design your own app. You can just come up with the idea and you can just let us know, and we will help you in designing that particular app. In the meanwhile, we have a question. So these are ready-made APIs which we can use. Can we write our own APIs? Yes, the Google APIs, the Facebook APIs, the Map APIs, there are plenty of other APIs which are ready-made. So you could just register for them and use their APIs, or you could just write your own API. So basically it's like Book My Show has their own API, and Facebook has their own API which is not exposed to outside environment. And like that you have Flipkart. So Flipkart has their own API itself. Is my voice audible right now? Can you hear my voice? Am I audible? Yes. Okay. Cool. Okay. They are freely available. So basically, Facebook APIs are freely available, and some of the Google APIs are freely available. So, like for example, the Google Maps app, yes, it is freely available, but again, based on the kind of app that you're using. So there are basically like some kind of restrictions which is put on the Google APIs also, which you cannot use it like freely. So there are some APIs wherein you have to pay and use. There are some APIs wherein you can use it like for free. For example, there is something like Google Places app, Places API, which for which you can use it for free for about like 2,000 requests per day. So from your app, you can make only 2,000 requests per day. If it exceeds 2,000 requests, then you would either have to pay or you will not be able to get the response. So that's the way it is. Now you will have the idea about, like, I mean, you'll have a confusion about, everybody knows about Google Play. Now you'll have a question like, can I put my app somewhere else apart from Play Store? Yes, you could definitely do that. So Amazon has its own Play Store and Google has its own Play Store. So, but Google is the most popular Play Store, and Amazon, it's like, uh, I, I I am like, not so, I am not using Google Amazon Play Store, frankly to tell, because there are only a very few people uses Amazon, so it's like a handful number. But Google Play Store is the main ones that you can put. But for Amazon Play Store, you could just, if you're experimenting your app and you want a Play Store kind of environment, then you can use like Amazon Play Store for placing your app there. And how does a Google Play Store work? So basically, Google Play Store is a marketplace where you can put your apps and you can encourage the other users to download your app and then use your app. So you could also put some monetization stuff like advertisements and ads and get data collection, data centers. So we establish all these things in your apps, and then you could just launch your app on Google Play Store. But there's a one-time fee of about $25 to register yourself as a developer in the Google Play Store, which you can do it. And this is what I was talking about, Google Analytics. So if you want to analyze like how your app's performance is and what exactly users are looking for in your app, so all these things can be analyzed using Google Analytics. And you have, like, for monetization, you have Google AdMob, basically the ad service, wherein using which you will be able to publish some ads and thereby earn some money out of your app. And we have a question: do we need Play Store for launching of apps? Yes, definitely. uh, do we need to pay? Yeah, I've told you, like, $25 as a one-time developer fee, and you can launch any apps as you want. That's a one-time fee. Okay, 1 second, I've just accidentally skipped some slides. Okay, and now you'll have the definite question about, like, how's the market and about jobs and all. Yes, definitely, Android as a growing market has plenty and plenty of opportunities. So you could just get some job very easily. And coming back to our uh, portal here, so how do you come to know about, I mean, how do you learn all these things? So it's basically, as you know, it's a mentor driven program. So we have our dashboard. So using our dashboard, you can just keep track of how you're exactly performing. So how you're performing, in the sense, what happens is, like, you have the day, you'll have the sessions on at the given time intervals. Along with that, the remaining time you'll have assignments, and you have a dashboard for you. And your dashboard has some quiz. Your dashboard has the options to sub view and submit assignments. Like, for every topic that you finish, we would be taking uh, assignment, and we would be validating it from our end, and we would be giving the feedback for the same assignment. And those things will be done through our dashboard, and each and every student will have their own credentials and they'll have their own dashboard. No, your Android app doesn't run on iPhone. There needs to be a separate app which has to be designed for iOS. So you cannot run an Android app on the iOS device. No, Android has a separate platform itself. So it's like you have to design two different apps. Any other questions at this point of time? Guys, if you have any other questions, you can just let me know. Okay, so this is the platform where you can grab all your assignments, and you could just you could just see about all these things. Like, you have different platforms. I mean, you can submit all the assignments here in the platform, and you could just uh, search for hints, get solutions after displaying, I mean, submitting the assignments. Just go for the best solutions which is provided by Acadgild. So all these things you can just learn. And the major thing is like you will get the real-time support. So if you see here, so we have our online support. So you could just chat with our online officials 24/7 support for, I mean, if you have any doubts, even at midnight, you could just log into a dashboard and check for the mentors who are available. So you can just ask your question, and your questions will be answered immediately. And now comes the quiz. So quiz is basically like we'll be constantly updating the dashboard with the new questions, and wherein you can just analyze your skills. So you could just log into a dashboard and check for the quiz options, and whichever topic you are familiar with or you're good at, just take out the quiz and prepare for the others. Take up quiz, and all these things would result in the points. And these points, like basically, we would pass on these points to the recruiters who come to us. So basically, we have like recruiters coming to us asking for the trained people. So we can, link you with them. Basically, we will be I mean, you can update your all your communication, I mean, all your profiles using LinkedIn. You can upload your CV and everything and keep it with us. So you will also be getting a certificate from our side, so using which you can look for some jobs. And we will also be providing the submitting your profile from our end to the recruiters, so that you will be getting placed easily. So these are our tools. Different tools. So we have a platform, so we have a meeting tool itself, and you can just log in and use it and do stuff. So if you further have any questions, you just ask me right now, or if you get any questions at the later stage, you could just log into acadgild.com, or you could just mail us at support@acadgild.com. You just dial us on this number, so we'll be able to help all your queries.